When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
It's April 15th. Let's do an update. How y'all doing? I mean, it's probably been a while since I kind of sat down and kind of just talked to y'all for just a little bit, kind of update what's going on in the podcast show. But how y'all doing? Welcome to the show. This is just going to be an update. I thought I could try to squeeze out an episode. I could, listen to an album that I'm not very keen on, reviewing, and I could force a review. I could do all this stuff. But, I just kind of want to come on here and said, you know what, fuck it. Instead of doing a re-upload or, forcing out an album review for Wednesday night, I thought Wednesday night we could just kind of chill, talk, do some updates, and kind of just, sit here and just, thank y'all. It's been a while, and, I've been getting a lot of comments lately, and, they haven't been the best comments. There's been so many comments that I don't even look at them sometimes. I have to wait to look at them. I miss them at a few days, but, I get a lot of comments, saying that, all I do is just do this for the views. And yes, that exactly. Of course, who doesn't? All right. Who doesn't do this for the views? Who doesn't do this for the content or whatever? But I do this for y'all too. I do these reviews for the audience too. I do these reviews for this show because I've been doing this show for 5 years. I've listened to over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of music and songs, and I've been privileged enough to, be able to live through multiple eras of artists now, multiple albums, multiple, ways an artist, can evolve. I'm really thankful that I just kind of get to sit here and just talk about that stuff, even if it is like Lil Baby in 2025 and 2026, he sounds terrible. Well, I remember in 2020, Lil Baby was the fucking name of the goddamn town. Motherfucker was dropping heat. Bro was going crazy. Y'all remember Lil Baby's feature run in 2020? That shit was crazy. Alright, do y'all remember Midnights, by Taylor Swift? There's just... And the coolest thing, too... I always go back to this because, when I do talk about Taylor Swift, it's not coming out of a place of hate. It's not coming out of a place of, like, oh, I hate the fucking doing this. No, because I remember I checked out Folklore when it first came out. Folklore first came out, and I had a really good-ass time listening to that album. Such a good-ass time. I was like, man, I don't really listen to Taylor Swift on my own, but if I was going to start, this is probably the album that I would start with. Yeah, there is a couple of slow tracks. There's some 5-minute, 6-minute tracks where I'm just like, turn that fucking shit off. But Folklore was such a fire-ass project. And, there's just so many eras that I just love that I get to go back. I remember I got to, review, some cool Blackpink songs, the first time they came out. And I just think, I love doing this show, I've done movie review shows, I've even tried to do a sports show for 50 episodes, which didn't really stick to doing that. I kind of got tired of doing that. I like to watch sports. Talking about sports, that's a whole different fucking ball game, But I love doing this show. This is my bread and butter, and I just love the fact that y'all are always here. Whether, it's a song that I hate, or it's a song that I like, or it's a song that I don't care for. Most of the time, y'all are just giving me your honest opinion, too. And that's why I will always, read the comments. I will always, like your comments. I will always message. I'll always try to reply back. It might not be the best reply back, but I will try to reply back to every comment. Whether it's something I don't agree with or something I do agree with. Because, I'm operating in the same landscape. They're giving their opinion. I'm giving my opinion. And I think, there's not a bad thing hearing other people's opinions. But I do want to just, before we even get into, thanking y'all, going over what's the future for season 12, what we got coming up, if there is anything coming up. We do got some stuff coming up that I want to talk about soon, which I'm waiting for. But, opinions and opinions and opinions and opinions are just goddamn opinions. And I do kind of want to reel back in, in 2026, I have to bring this up every year. And I have to bring this every time I do this music review show, is that my opinion is just my opinion. Doesn't mean my opinion's right. Doesn't mean, I'm knowledgeable in every fucking little thing. Doesn't mean, I got number one charting songs. My opinion is just my opinion. And, you can agree with it, you can disagree with it, you can hate it, you can like it. I don't care, I got thoughts that I have. I have experience of making music a long time ago, and then I carried that experience and started making music reviews. So I use that experience and I use what I've been hearing over the past 5 years, and I go off of that, So
all new drinks are now at McDonald's, with refreshers like the strawberry watermelon refresher and the mango pineapple refresher with popping boba, to crafted sodas like the Sprite Berry Blast with berry flavors and cold foam. Who knew ice cold drinks could be so fire? Try them all now at McDonald's.
Refreshers contain caffeine. Copyright 2026, The Coca-Cola Company. Sprite is a registered trademark of The Coca-Cola Company.
Well, my opinion's just my opinion. Don't take me too seriously. I take myself and this show very seriously when I do music reviews. And I know I sound super serious sometimes. I know I'm fucking cussing up a storm, or I'm super pissed off. Sometimes I do get mad doing this show. Sometimes I do listen to an album. Like recently, I've done 2 re-uploads of this because, I see all the hateful comments and all the comments. And I even got some comments where they were like, about the BTS album review. People were like, hey, you are not even gonna, you're gonna delete this. You're not gonna even talk about BTS anymore because you can't even stand the hate. And I just kind of laugh because, this brings me back to when BTS came out in 2021 or 2022. They had a comeback. They had a spring, summertime comeback, and they had pop music. It was shitty ass pop music. That's what I remember. And guys, I can go word for word. I got the same death threats. I got the same shitty ass comments, the same paragraph comments. So, some things never change, and BTS fans are one of those people who just never change at all. So I did do a re-upload of that. And the reason why, that album review, I'm so mad, I'm so angry. It's because, I was really looking forward to this album because I knew about BTS coming back since 2025. I knew in 2026 in the springtime, BTS was going to drop. And I checked out that album, and that album was such a downgrade, was such a embarrassing ass album to listen to. And I can't believe I stayed up till 12 a.m. to fucking check it out when it's that goddamn ass. It was really, it pissed me off. Alright? Because sometimes y'all don't get it, but, when I choose an album, and usually when I choose an album to do, that's what I'm doing for the whole week. That's what I'm listening to for my whole entire week. I'm just listening to that music. So I'm going to be pissed if every single song off this BTS album sounds like shit. I'm going to have a bad time. And I'm not going to be happy doing these music reviews. I'm not going to fake it. I'm not going to sit up here and lie to y'all and say, oh no, nah, BTS, y'all fucking killed it. No, BTS's new album is shit. It's ass. It needs work. It needs to go back to the studio. That's my real opinion. Alright, you might not agree with it. You might disagree with it. A lot of people disagree with it. But I don't care. Give it a few years and you're not going to be spinning this album at all because the shit's ass. But anyways, enough of my venting about, the recent hate I've been getting. Honestly, I kind of like it. It brings a new element into the show. You know, I'm used to getting so many hate comments, but now, you know, when it's like when it's like 50 plus hate comments, you know, you're just like, God damn. God fucking damn. But thank y'all so much for checking out the show. We got more stuff coming up. Season 12 is about to get even more crazy because Olivia Rodrigo. It has been a long-ass time since I talked about Olivia Rodrigo. But Olivia Rodrigo is dropping a new album, I think next month. But she's dropping a new single this Friday night, I'm pretty sure. So that is going to be a really fun time. Apparently, Olivia Rodrigo's in love. She's making love songs, so that's going to be really fun to check out. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast show. Whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on YouTube, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast at, whether you want to leave hate comments or, you know, no comments at all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast show. It means a lot to me, guys. And I will see y'all on Thursday night, hopefully, with Olivia Rodrigo. I'll see y'all later. You have a good one. Yeah, guys. Bye.